everybody, I'm Danny Otto. Welcome into an all-new episode of That Recap Show. Now, before we get into the episode, just want to announce, major spoiler alert, we are going to be going over everything that happened in episode 3 of the Ahsoka series. So if you haven't seen that episode yet, you may want to pause this video, head over to Disneyplus, watch that, and then come back and enjoy the breakdown. Now, with that out of the way, let's start the show!
Poppin' Off presents That Recap Show.
Journey with me to break down everything from episode 3 of the Ahsoka series. It's Jon Jon Rico!
Hello.
Hello! Hello there!
Hello there. Hello there.
Hello there. There we go. So yeah, episode 3. And we were talking about this. It felt a little short, not in like a bad way, but just in comparison because we got, the 2-episode premiere, and then I felt like both of those episodes were longer in general.
Pretty decently long,
yeah. And this left off just almost exactly like episode 1 left off. So it's almost like I feel like that's kind of the model for the series is we're getting, in chunks. Because this definitely felt like this could have just been a continued like episode 4 right into it type of thing.
Yeah.
So I'm not complaining at all. I think it's going very well. It's just, it felt short, but I mean that in the best way possible because I wanted more content. And that's, I guess that's what a series is supposed to do from episode to episode. It makes you want to watch the next one. And you know what? I'm dying to see the next one. So it achieves a purpose. But I mean, getting right into the episode, I really enjoyed that we got this glimpse into Sabine training. And it was almost reminiscent of, episode 4, A New Hope, when we had, Luke training on the Millennium Falcon. And I mean, there's a couple of parallels that I was feeling like during the entire, I guess, space scene, I guess. I mean, we had, Sabine operating the tail gun or tail gunner seat. And that kind of was making me think of, with Luke and Han kind of communicating and shooting stuff down. I was waiting for Ahsoka to say, like, don't get cocky after Sabine first, hit the first ship finally. Like, the plan finally, like, they synced up, I guess, and it finally worked once. But that's just because, like, I was getting flashbacks from A New Hope. But yeah, I mean, this, like, I meant it in the best way possible. I really liked, seeing... kind of getting a glimpse into Sabine, and I'm really hoping that, that's foreshadowing that, like, everyone does have a little bit of the Force within them, and so we're going to see that, even though, Sabine is on the bottom of the totem pole, according to the I'm just going to name him Sassy Droid. According to that, like, she's so low of a candidate, for Jedi training and stuff like that. But I really hope that, getting glimpses into her training, we're going to see that, everyone kind of does have a little bit of the Force, but it's really, it is just like what Ahsoka was saying. It's training, it's discipline, it's, that kind of thing is what kind of makes or breaks someone being able to kind of use that connection type of thing. I don't know if we're actually going to get that payoff, but that's kind of what I was hoping that, like, that kind of introduction scene was alluding to, basically. But other than that, I mean, before I get too deep into the episode, before we get, the big takeaways and stuff like that, I really enjoyed it. And Rico, what were some of, like, your initial impressions of this episode?
Yeah, I thought this was a pretty fun episode. This to me felt like the same way they kick off the past seasons of Rebels. You have like this big 1-2 parter that has like this kind of that overall setting up the big story that you're about to see. And then the third episode is usually like, okay, it's the team going off on this adventure, and here's what's going on. In this case, it's more about kind of further establishing the relationship between Ahsoka and Sabine as master and apprentice. There's a great scene between Ahsoka and Huyang sassy droid, as you've now called him, where he goes, well, you do come from a strange lineage of masters. And if you look at like the chain of like teachers that she comes from, of course, being that Anakin was her teacher, Obi-Wan's teacher was Qui-Gon, Qui-Gon's teacher was Count Dooku, and then Dooku's teacher was Yoda. Like she literally comes from a chain of like the top tier Jedi of all time. So the methods in which she was like taught don't really transfer over to the most common ways of Jedi teaching. I think is the point that that Huyang was trying to getting across to her there. But I really like seeing that. Of course, you kind of see shades of all those different dynamics with all those Jedi we talked about in that relationship between her and Sabine. I think Obi-Wan and Luke is kind of like the most relatable when we're trying to see it, but also we got to see some like aspects of her relationship with Anakin as well. Because that's what she knows, right? Is how she was taught by him. So yeah, I'm really enjoying that dynamic as well. And then of course, getting some stuff with Hera and the Senators is really cool as well. I'll get into more of that later. But yeah, it's just like a pretty standard, like, hey, we have our mission, we're gonna get there, we get to our destination, now we're gonna move on to the next thing, which is probably gonna be a bigger part of the story. So yeah, I had a lot of fun with this.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. You want to get to some big takeaways?
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. I'm going to kick us off with big takeaways. And look, I mean, I was already starting to describe the scene and getting into this, but like my favorite part of the entire episode is Ahsoka on the wing of her ship with her lightsabers taking on starfighters, basically. Like, it's nothing. Like, hey, there's nothing else we can do. Like, and she's like, actually, it isn't like, hard. It didn't seem hard. Basically, she just kind of jumped out of the way when they flew by. And then she takes one of them out by like lightsaber through the wing. Like, it was awesome. I loved that scene. If I had to, boil that entire episode down into one scene, like that's my favorite scene of the entire episode. I thought it was awesome. It showed, how much control Ahsoka actually has as a Jedi in general. And I mean, for me, like I said, and I said we're doing this for this series. I have not watched Rebels, so coming from I saw Ahsoka in Clone Wars, and the brief live action introduction that we got in Mando and Book of Boba Fett. But for me, this is kind of showing me kind of how powerful Ahsoka is, like as a Jedi. I feel like this is kind of we're getting the live. If nothing else, we're getting the live action glimpse of how powerful of a Jedi Ahsoka is. Because to take on at that point, maybe it was like 4 or 5 ships, maybe it's 4 ships, because I think Sabine had shot down at least 2 of them by then. But still, she's in the middle of space in a spacesuit with her 2 lightsabers taking on, fighter ships. And I just thought it was awesome. That was my favorite scene. Rico, what were some of your takeaways from this episode?
Yeah, that scene was definitely, I would say, like it was cartoony in a way for me, because it felt like a scene I would seen out of Clone Wars or Rebels. Like, of course, you would have been attached to the ship in some form or way, and then being able to jump. But there's no gravity in space, so I was like curious at how she was getting her feet back on the ship. But then they did the one shot where like she had to turn the ship back on.
Yeah, she had to tilt the wing.
Yeah, but so there was like they covered their ass on that one part, but still part of it was just kind of like almost defied physics there for a little bit, and but it was still like really cool sequence to watch, of course. First thing I thought of course, is in Rise of Skywalker when Rey jumps over the TIE fighter and does the same thing. Of course, she has gravity holding her down, so that it doesn't look as cool. It will still look pretty cool actually, but I think when you're in the aesthetic of space, it just looks extra cool. So I really did enjoy that as well. The entire dogfight sequence to me was a real blast.
Yeah.
Like you mentioned earlier, reminiscent of the dogfight in episode 4 with Luke and Han, especially with the back and forth banter. Again, part of the whole growth between the 2 characters, of course, because they were kind of going through that like sisterly fight phase where like they kind of weren't on the best speaking terms, and of course, Huyang's like, come on, like get your shit together. And he's like, okay, we gotta like actually work together here. All right, what do you want to do? Boom, like, and then they start to work together, and it all works out in their favor. So yeah, that was really cool. And then they get to the nav system, of course, or the ISI on this, the big hyperspace ring that they discover is being made by Morgan Elsbeth, which of course learned the whole technology around that was pretty cool because finally we're not just dealing with like another Death Star type thing where it's just like, oh no, we got to stop this big hyperspace ring from being made because the threat of intergalactic travel itself is just something you just got to prevent it alone, especially if Thrawn's on the other side of that travel, right? So yeah, I really love that. So once they get into the nav system and try to make for a landing, they kind of make their way through some stormy clouds and fog, and they boom right out the gate. We're met with some Purgill for the first time in live action. After they were teased in season 3 of Mandalorian, when we saw Mando going through hyperspace and he saw them kind of like their shadow, we finally get to see them like in the flesh for the first time, and they look freaking awesome. Of course, they look like whales to a degree, but they also got these wild, like kraken like tentacles.
Yeah.
The scale of like the size of them compared to the ship is like obviously monstrous in comparison, especially in comparison to how they look in Rebels. I think I'm wondering if like the ones we see in Rebels are just like either animated small versions of him or those are just small Purgle in general because these ones are huge and I'm just like dang. So yeah, that was like honestly a really cool way to introduce those, and of course I can't wait to see more of them in future episodes. Like I imagine we're gonna get a sequence we're gonna see them take off in hyperspace at some point. Um, yeah, so to me that was just like really cool. It obviously has big implications for the whole story, given they're tied to Ezra and Thrawn. So, yeah, I'm excited to see what the future holds in store for them.
Yeah, absolutely. And as soon as I saw them, I was like, somewhere Rico is very excited.
Love Purple.
but anyway, yeah, I'm very excited to see. I mean, just seeing them and knowing that they were tied to Ezra and Thrawn is a big deal because it's like a step closer, even if it's not.
Yeah.
Like everything is like a breadcrumb, and I think this is a big breadcrumb step closer. To doing that.
And getting Sabine's reaction to them as well, because like she said, they haven't seen them since they took Ezra away from us, and that was a long time ago in comparison to this. So,
yeah.
Again, getting that cool little story thread tying together with Rebels again, it's like, ooh, it just it hits home for sure, and man, they looked really cool.
Do you want to get to some predictions?
Yeah, let's do it.
Awesome. All right, why don't you kick us off with predictions?
All right, so we get our one scene with Hera in this episode where she is talking with Mon Mothma and the other senators of the New Republic. A very interesting scene where she's asking basically for resources to help Ahsoka and Sabine to help Ezra. In using it or spinning it in a way to say like we need to help prevent Thrawn, which is also true at the same time, but the Descendants kind of call her out and be like, "Are you really just using this as a way to bring back your friend?" And she's kind of calls them out too. It's like, "Have you ever been to war?" It's a really great back and forth between these two characters, and obviously like a dynamic in Star Wars where it's like the people who are doing the senator fight, they're fighting the political fight versus the people who are on the ground floor and the actual like the battle of it. So seeing the dynamic between those two types of characters is actually really interesting to see in the show. But right after that, we hear this young little voice. It's a little boy turned around, and it's young Jacen, who is the son of Hera and Kanan Jarrus from Star Wars Rebels. We only get a small glimpse of him at the end of the show, but we get this first time hearing him speak in this episode. And he obviously talks about wanting to be a Jedi, which of course his dad was a Jedi, so I'm sure he's going to have some force sensitivity pop up eventually. And also going back to like the whole force thing with Sabine and all that. I remember Kanan saying in Rebels that it's been said throughout Star Wars ever is that the force surrounds everybody, every living being, right? It's just a matter of how open you are to it. So I think whenever we saw little glimpses of Sabine being able to get being able to open up to it, right? When she's like trying to start with the small stuff. So yeah, I think what we'll possibly see with Jacen going forward is some kind of implication of the Force, hopefully, and then hopefully this will tease some kind of bigger role for him in some Star Wars projects later on. Who knows what Filoni's movie project is going to be about? But either way, like in that timeline where Rey could be running an academy, he'll be much older. Yeah, there's a lot of potential for that one character alone, and of course he's named after Jacen Solo, I believe, who was a old Legends character that was Luke and no Han and Leia's kid. Sorry, I almost said Luke and Leia. That would have been weird. Yeah. No. Sorry, too much Game of Thrones. Sorry. But yeah, he was a really cool Legends character. But yeah, I think the potential for Jacen is very big potential.
Very cool. Yeah, I mean, it's really cool that we're in this pocket of, very old Star Wars, which I'm talking old in terms of original trilogy, but we already kind of have the future trilogy. So we're in this pocket. So like there is a really cool dynamic that Filoni can work with, where it's like, oh, if I introduce a younger character in this, I could do a project that takes place, after the newer trilogy, and then have a grown-up version of that character. Like it's a cool situation to be in right now.
Yeah.
Because not only does it can it build to like another series that's still set into this pocket, but it could build into a series or a movie that's past that old or the newer trilogy, I guess. So it's really cool. It's really cool to think about any character that gets introduced in general, to see what they could potentially pop up in the future, or an older version of that character can pop up in the future, type of thing. It's really cool. For my prediction, I mean, again, I don't exactly have a prediction, but I love that we get, like, it's in so many movies and so many things. We get these key famous last words, and it's by one of the senators.
Oh yeah,
that Hera was arguing with, and it's Thrawn, Grand Admiral Thrawn is dead.
Yeah, so sure of it.
For sure, the fact that he's that sure means he's definitely not dead. Like, it's happening. It's 110% happening now that Thrawn is going to pop up. And I don't even know for sure, but I think that senator is going to die.
Gonna eat his words, essentially. Yeah. Honestly, for that one guy, in particular, I hope he does eat his words, to be honest. Like, that's what you get for just being so dismissive of Hera, who was a freaking rebellion hero, and you're just gonna go and dismiss her like that. Like, F you, dude.
I mean, to be fair, she put him in his place because she goes,
good.
Did you serve at all? Like,
and he's
that was awesome. That was like, then go screw yourself. Like, that was perfect. That was perfect with Hera there. But yeah, I mean, as far as prediction for like next episode, I don't really have one. I mean, obviously, I know we're building to bigger and bigger things. Something that I would like to see is a little bit more of, Sabine, training wise. To kind of, I'm hoping that like in a last episode of this of this season or something like that, we get a payoff with Sabine, maybe being able to move something small, or having a better outcome of a lightsaber battle. like that kind of thing is what I'm looking at, all of the potential slow building things that are happening, type of thing. And we have a lot of them. We really do. We have, the famous last words that Thrawn is dead, which, we're led to believe that he's not at this point. We have Sabine's force training. We have
final engine is put in place.
Exactly.
The hyperspace thing.
So we have a lot of things building. So it's really cool to kind of predict, I guess, when those are going to start paying off. And that's what's really cool. Because I mean, it's pretty easy right now. That hyper ring's definitely going to get finished, because that's the only way that they're going to get to Thrawn and Ezra.
We're going to see Thrawn, damn it.
Yeah.
That's really what we're all waiting for, is like seeing him, seeing Ezra. I would say, as far as the next episode is concerned, we basically have to look forward to a game of Force hide and seek between Baylan Skoll as hunters and then Sabine and Ahsoka and the ship. So I feel that's like sets the perfect stage for the next episode, which should give us some pretty cool action, I would imagine.
That was a really cool way to end. With him just going find her. Like,
I was like, ooh, perfect way to set up next episode. And then it ended, I was like, yes.
That was really good. I really like that. Yeah, I'm excited for next week. I'm excited for the rest of the season in general. But yeah, big things are coming. Can't wait. So, but anyway, as we always say, that's what we think. Let us know in the comments below. What did you think of this episode? And what are you looking forward to as like slow burning payoffs for the rest of the season? And do you think we're going to see Sabine actually, connect with the Force and be able to kind of, use it by the end of the season. And as always, don't forget, like, subscribe, and turn on notifications to hear about all of our latest audio and video podcast releases. Bye, everybody!
Popping Off presents That Recap Show.